started. And want to thank everyone for joining us for the Women EV Drivers panel that we've got as part of the Blue Ridge Electric Club's Drive Electric Week. We are very fortunate to be joined by some excellent panelists to talk about their experience, and a wonderful moderator who is new to the EV world, which we're very excited about. So get to have some fresh eyes on the topic. So first off, want to say thank you so much to our sponsors, the Landeskai Regional Council Clean Vehicles Coalition. They've been just a wonderful partner with us every year, and we really appreciate your continued support with that, and also the Southern Alliance for Clean Energy. Both are just wonderful partners with us, and I'm very excited to have you be a part of this event. We are going to be recording this event so we can put it up on our YouTube page as time goes along as well. So once this is over, please share it with folks that you think might be interested in driving electric vehicles. It will be on the Blue Ridge EV Club YouTube page. And so please forward this along as you please. Also, please mute yourself to make sure that we don't have crosstalk and potentially embarrassing things. I've heard so many times about classes being interrupted by toilet flushes and other things. So please mute your microphones as part of the conversation here to give our panelists the opportunity to be heard. And please add any questions that you have in the chat. We have some questions to start the conversation with, but as things come up, please add them to the chat, and I'll kind of make sure that all of your questions get asked during the panel. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our moderator, Sarah Nichols. Thank you so much for joining us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. So I'm excited today. As you said, I'm with Landeskai Regional Council. I've been working with Chris Dobbins and Bill Aker recently in some transitional, as they start to retire, and we start to look at how we organize those programs. I'm going to be taking over some of these clean vehicle programs, which I'm excited about. And one of the first public things I've done is this here today. I'm honored to be a part of this group of ladies telling their stories about driving and buying EVs. And it kind of forced me to take more of an internal look as like, why haven't I done that already? What are my reasons for not having done that? And so I'm excited to learn. Hopefully there's some other people on this call who get that same sort of glimpse into what are the challenges, how do they work through them, why did they go ahead and do it? So for starters, I'd like each of my wonderful panelists to introduce themselves by name, how long you've had an EV, and what you're driving right now. Starting with Laura.
Hi, I'm Laura Plonsky. I live outside of Cleveland, Ohio, on near Lake Erie, and I have been driving a Nissan Leaf. It's a 2016. I got it in 2018, and I really love it. It's something I've wanted to do for a long time, and so I got one a couple of years ago, and I have not missed going to the gas station or getting oil changes. I absolutely love it.
Beth, how about you?
Let's see, I started driving an electric car in spring of 2016, and at that time it was a Nissan Leaf, a 2015 Nissan Leaf. Really liked it. In 2019, my husband and I changed around some cars, and we sold the Nissan Leaf and bought a electric GM Chevy Spark. And that is the car I drive most of the time around town. And at that time, we also bought a Tesla Model 3. So really like driving the car. And I echo Laura. It's really, 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 really nice not having to go to a gas station. I can just plug the car in at my house at the spur of the moment. I don't have to plan a trip to the gas station or plan a trip to get an oil change and all that kind of stuff. So definitely would not want to go back to driving an ICE car, as they say, the internal combustion engine car.
Okay, Heidi, can you tell us a little bit about what you're driving?
Hi, I'm Heidi, and I live in Marshall, North Carolina, which is 30 miles north of Asheville. And I bought my Chevy Bolt 2018 in February of 2018, and I have 48,000 miles on it now. And before COVID-19, I was driving into Asheville 3 times a week. And I was doing long distance trips also with my car. And I put 20,000 miles on in a year. And charging it, I just charge it when I need to charge it. And I find plugs where I need to. Long distance trips, I just have to do a little more planning. And I just use my car as a regular old car. I don't even think of it as an electric car. It's just my car. I get around with it, and I load it. You can see I have racks on the back. I have trailered with it. I can put kayaks on the top and ladders, lumber, whatever. It's just a car. And I've totally forgotten about oil changes. I do have a truck, a pickup truck that can haul like huge amounts of stuff. So I get the pleasure of oil changes. I don't have to give it up. So I'm really excited about having my feet in both worlds, the old and the new. Thank you.
So I recently read a report that's from 2016 that the early adopters of EVs often were related to climate or carbon emissions, environmental related issues. But I'm interested for you ladies, was that the driver, or was it something else about an EV that got you excited and pushed you into that purchase? Beth, you want to get started?
Sure, be glad to. I'm kind of in Laura's boat, what we were talking about previously. I am married to a man whose passion, repeat, passion is energy issues and hybrid electric vehicles. He's been in that world professionally since the early 80s. I married him in 1989. So I have been, even though I'm a social worker by training, I am not a technical person by osmosis. I've always been interested in environmental issues. I grew up as a child in the Don't Be a Litter Bug campaign, and I took that very seriously, and I still do. So it's not something I probably would have moved into necessarily just on my own as early as I have, but being married to someone who's, I mean, this is his passion, and he really wanted to walk his talk, and I certainly believe that too. So that was the driving force behind, is just living in this world, hearing about it for years, seeing early adopters, which I don't know, some of the people, my husband knows people who were building these cars in their garages and electrifying anything, wheelchairs, shopping carts, sofas, and having, when they used to do electric races, car races in Phoenix, Arizona, I went to a couple of those, and that was back in the 90s. And just seeing the innovation and the excitement. So these people, I think, certainly concerned about the environment, but also just the innovation, wanting to try something new and getting off oil. Thank you.
Thank you. That was the thought of electrifying a sofa is to 2030 for me. Heidi, what was part of your decision making?
Well, I once again have my feet in two worlds, the ancient world and the modern futuristic world. And I bought the car because it was something new, and it was something going to be like, this is going to be so cool. And this is the way the future is going. And I have to put my money into supporting this new and upcoming business. And I'm solar, I'm off the grid, and yeah, you can see I got solar panels, and so I can charge my car with solar with absolutely clean electricity. And but I really like the old. I love my old blue jeans with patches and my old stuff that's broken, you know. So maybe that's why I still keep my gas car, because it's really, really old. So I like them both. I can't say, you know, gas is bad. You know, I can't say electricity is the only way to go. I think we have a lot more forward inventions in the future that we're going to have to make to really make it like switch completely over to a new way of driving. But I'm sure, maybe not the next generation, but there's going to be a generation that's going to like invent a new way of carrying power, a huge bang for the buck, like fossil fuels was. I mean, come on, one drop of fossil fuels gets you really far. So I can understand how we loved it and we're addicted to it, but there's a better way. There's a new way. It's coming. Some hippie guy from Berkeley is going to invent it. I don't know, but I'm on the first step. I'm on the first stage of the future, and I'm supporting wherever it's going to go. Thank you.
So when it comes to big purchases, I think that women tend to do a lot of research. Homes, cars, just a part of that. Laura, could you tell us a little bit about your experience and how much preparation you did or thought behind your purchase?
I was hoping I got the other question, because this is not a good question for me. I work full time, and not that I didn't want to get an EV before, but I just had very little time to research. And my dad, who's been in the EV world for a long time, he was very familiar with the type of cars to get. And, I hate to sound like, oh, I had somebody else do it for me, but that's the truth. And he knew what he was doing. I really had not, I knew what EV cars were, of course, and I knew that, about all I knew was a Leaf. So, he did the research. So I'm embarrassed to say that, I wish I could give you more information, but yeah, I'm not the best person to speak about that.
I think we heard from Beth a little too, that she relied on good partnership. And I think that's part of it, as who do you trust to give you intel on things that you don't necessarily yourself know about via proximity. How do you pull your resources? Heidi, do you have a different response? You're on mute, Heidi.
Sorry about that. I don't have a husband, so I can't ask him. And my dad's dead, so I can't ask him. And I don't talk to my brother, so I can't ask him. So I have to do the research myself. But I didn't do an awful lot. I just wanted to find out which car could carry a lot of stuff. And I wanted a hatchback. And I wanted to be able to drive to Tacoma, Washington when I felt like it. So I had to have a big battery pack. So I looked up to see who had the biggest and best, and that's what I got. I got the Chevy. I didn't have any choices. So, and then, I just went, okay, this is what I'm going to get. And it didn't take a lot of research, but I did use the internet, and, the manufacturers have a lot of information out there. And of course, they're saying I'm the best and everybody else sucks. But, you take it with a grain of salt. and you can figure out what you want, and then you can find out who's got it.
I love that. For anyone who's bought a car, which is probably most of the folks in this room, I know the last time I went to the lot and shopped at different lots, the ones who were like, hey, little miss, what color do you want? Or how many children are you going to be putting in that? Like, those are the places that I just kind of left first. Right? Like, don't assume for me what my needs in a car are That being said, does anyone have a good story of their car buying experience? And how did you feel like the dealership or your salesperson understood the EV car that you might be interested in? Beth, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, once again, we bought two of our EVs, two of our three EVs on an internet site. Is it okay, Sarah, if I say where? I mean,
actually, David, is it okay if she says where?
I think that's fine. I don't think that this
Okay.
is an endorsement in any way. I think
Okay.
it's where you purchased it, and as long as it's not positive or negative, maybe we'll put it that way. That way, there's no worry about endorsement on that.
okay, and I'm not getting paid to say this, but Carvana.com, which I think now is much more in the world. A lot of more people know about it. That is the internet site where we bought two of our three EVs, and that was a wonderful experience because we weren't dealing with a salesman. That can be a challenge, I think, dealing with salesmen going to a car lot. So that, I mean, it was no dickering. It was, this is what the cars we have, look at them. It was just a very easy process to do. And then the Tesla, of course, there aren't dealers with Teslas either. So it's basically an internet buy. So for our three cars, we did not go to a dealership. I know my husband, when the Bolt and the Volt came out, he was just doing his own research just to see our local dealerships handling these cars. And he was getting various responses. No, we're not, nobody's interested to, no, we don't know anything about those two. Yeah, we got them, so I don't know how helpful my experience is, but I certainly, to buy any car from now on, I think I would go on the internet because you're not dealing with a dealer. And I share your pain, Sarah. I've experienced that too.
Heidi, how about you?
Yeah, I have definitely experienced salesmen who wanted to sell me what they wanted to sell me, but I've only bought 2 new cars, and this is one of them. I usually buy old bombs, and I went to Sunshine Chevrolet, and I just said, "This is what I want. This is what I'm going to get, and when can you deliver?" And then and the guy was nice, and he didn't like push me around. He said, "Well, want to try a car?" He said, "You better hurry up and try it because there's 2 guys waiting to buy it. So you have to test drive it before they buy it." So I was like, yeah, get me in it. So he drove around and he kept pushing buttons. And I said, "Stop pushing those buttons. I'm never going to use those. Just let me drive." But he kept pushing the buttons to show me all the great features, which I don't really care about. And he didn't override me. He really didn't. And I've gone back several times, and the car salesman has come out and says, "How's it working? How do you like it? What trips have you been on? What are you doing with your car?" And then he'd roll his eyes because I'm not supposed to be doing that with the car, But I got along well with him because I went with my focus on what I was going to get. I had no wishy-washy going on, nothing. I was like, I want this, this, and this. And I had a friend who also owns a Leaf, and she was with me, and we were both like excited. Yeah, we want this, this, and this. So it kind of like met the masculine, roar with our feminine roar. So it worked okay. Thank you.
Laura, do you have anything to add?
No, my car buying process was non-existent, honestly. So, it's just basically afterward, the questions that I'm sure you'll lead into this, but once you have a Leaf, then you get, I can speak to that, but no, the car buying process was not something, I mean, I was involved in it, but not to the extent that the other people were.
I think this is a good one for you, Heidi. What's the most you fit in your car?
the most I fit in the car.
How many people, how much stuff? It sounds like you go on a lot of long trips and you don't kind of let it get in the way.
Well, my old car, I built my entire house and it was a Volkswagen. But so this car, I have definitely packed it to the top with stuff going to the dump. And I've put, I've put stuff on the roof and scratched the roof already. Don't tell the next buyer. And I towed stuff, and I think that they say that you're not supposed to tow anything, that the trailer hitch is only meant for, a feather. And I actually did, I have a trailer, has 60 pounds of tongue weight. It's a 450-pound trailer, and I towed a 500-pound object over the mountains into Tennessee, and I had absolutely no problem. I just use a little more of electricity than normal, but the car did really well for a 1,000-pound thingamajig dragging behind it. So I'm pretty impressed. I guess that would be my biggest, wow. So I'll show you some pictures of it. It was kind of a cool experience. Thank you.
Laura, how about you?
Well, as the mother of a teenage daughter, I have transported a lot of young people in my car, and they all play instruments. So I've been toting around instruments. I also loaded up, this was kind of funny because I went to a garden store one time and I wanted to get mulch. And the guy who was helping me load the mulch, he looked at me hesitantly like, it's not going to fit in here. I said, trust me, it'll fit in there. So he just kept throwing it in. And yeah, I got a number of almost a dozen bags of mulch in the back seat. So yeah, it's really, you can't go out. I have not done anywhere near what Heidi's done, but yeah, you can get a lot more than you think in there.
Beth?
Yeah, in my Leaf, when I had my Leaf, you can put the back seat down in the Leaf and you have a lot of room. I know one of the guys in the EV club, I don't haul 2x4s, but he could haul 2x4s in his Leaf. My story is buying 4 nice kind of patio, that nice plasticky kind of chairs. I bought 4 of those, and by putting my back seat down in that Leaf, I could get all 4 into the car. I didn't have to have the store deliver them for me. So you could get a lot of stuff in the Leaf. In my Chevy Spark, it is a little car. It's bigger than David's smart car, but not by a whole lot. But so, although the back seat does go down in that car too, and you can get a lot of stuff. I've moved furniture, some end tables and some things like that in that car. It's certainly great for groceries. I do every opportunity I can, well, pre-pandemic, when my book club would meet at someone's house, and I would volunteer to be a carpool driver, because I would want women, because a lot of women in my book club do not drive electric vehicles. They don't know much about them. So I would say, well, come on and drive with me so you can see what it's like. So I could, in my Spark, there's me and 3 people. In the Tesla, I think we can get 3 people in the back seat and 2 in the front. One of the funniest comments from one of my friends who'd never been in an EV before she drove in one of mine was, she was sitting in the front seat with me and we take off and we're driving, and she looks at me and she says, gosh, this is like a real car. So I like to think I'm spreading the word that way. Thank you.
It's like a real car. How about that? Laura, I want to start with you on this one. Since having your electric vehicle, what's your experience been like, and how has it affected your day-to-day planning?
Well, in the beginning, I was very hesitant to go places because, I mean, I knew what a safe range was, but I used to tutor a lot before COVID, and I would drive. It was easy for me to drive maybe 30 miles to go see a student. And I was always asking my husband, you know, maybe I should take your car. And after a while, now I'm like, oh, I'm down to, oh, the light came on, the warning, you know, the woman's voice going, you should really think about finding a charging station. And I'm like, yeah, I know, I'll be fine. I don't worry about that so much anymore. I have been in situations where I was nervous, but now, I mean, you get used to it because, you know, in the beginning, again, it was like, oh, I forgot to plug in my car. And there are things that you're not used to doing, but now it's just second nature. I just do it. And
Yeah,
yes, you do have to plan your trips for sure. But I am a lot more comfortable in knowing my range now and what I can do about it if I get down to a low battery.
Can you imagine going back to a gasoline car?
No, I never liked finding a gas station and getting out of the car. And I used to get my gas gauge down very, very low because especially in the wintertime, because we live in Cleveland, and I didn't want to get out of the car and everything that goes with that. I didn't ever have time to, I mean, I did get my oil changed, obviously, but it was like, oh, one more thing to do. But there were a lot of things now that I don't have to do. So, but through experience, you learn what you can do and what you can't do. And especially the wintertime, that first winter with my car, I panicked because I thought something was wrong with my battery because I turned it on and I have like 75 miles at a full charge. And I'm thinking, what is wrong with the car? I just got it. But it just turned out to be, I read a lot about you were talking about research earlier. I did more research after I bought the car to know how to drive it and to know how to handle it. And that's when I read a lot about how to drive during the bad weather. And now I just don't even think about it.
Beth, your experience and your day-to-day experience?
Yeah, I do plan. I plan my trips a little bit, but I was doing that with a gasoline powered car anyway. I'm retired. So when I go somewhere, I don't want to have to keep going every day of the week. So I plan my trips anyway I go from here to here to here. It's funny, something Laura said. Initially, I was concerned about range anxiety also early on. And I have found just the other day, I just kind of realized I don't think about that anymore, because if it's low, you come home and you plug it in the wall. So I've really gotten into the mindset of thinking more of, instead of gas station to get my car, the energy it needs, more like my cell phone. Oh, well, I see my cell phone's a little low tonight. I better plug it in. Well, that's what I think about with the car. Oh, tomorrow I want to go such and such places, and I have so many miles on the car. I think I'll charge it tonight. Also, here in Asheville, we have Nichols grocery stores, which is our major grocery store here. They are putting in charging stations at all of their new grocery stores, is my understanding. I happen to live and shop at one that's an older grocery store, but they have a charging station for us. So I don't have to think about it. If I'm running over to Nichols to pick something up, okay, there's a space open in front of the charger. I'll plug in while I'm shopping. So I think over time, I've been doing this now for 4 years, I'm having to think less about how to plan my day. It's becoming more natural, I guess. Maybe that's a way of saying it. Thank you.
Can you imagine ever going back to a gasoline?
No. And I think one of the big things is I just really like how simple the car is. I'm really becoming a minimalist in my old age. I love how simple the car is and that it doesn't take a lot of maintenance at all. I love to tell people that and see their eyes widen when I tell them, you know, probably about the only thing we're going to have to buy on this car are new windshield wipers, and eventually we'll have to replace the tires. I love to see the look on their faces like, oh, wow, you know, never
I love
thought about that.
that you're a Tesla owner and you're describing it as simple.
Well, I mean, you can drive that car simply. I drive the Chevy Spark a lot more than I drive the Tesla. But even the Tesla, I'm kind of like Heidi. It's like, okay, just let me find put it in drive so I can go, and how do I stop it? That's the most important thing I need to know. I don't need all the bells and whistles.
Heidi, how about you? Tell us about how you plan your day and the experience.
I had to show you this photograph because I'm really proud of the fact that my Bolt could have a maximum of 325 miles on a charge. But that's because it was 80 degrees out and I had been on the highway at 55 miles an hour, and you can see the average is 5.5 miles per kilowatt, which is pretty high. And normally I don't always get it that much. And sometimes you can see I have 239 miles that I got on this tank at 4.7 miles per kilowatt, but my cruise control was set at 53 miles an hour and I ended up with 18 at the end. So yeah. I love numbers. They're cool. But you have to plan. These were on long distance trips. And you have to make your plans, and you have to incorporate the temperature that's going on, whether you're going to use any heat in the car. I was on a trip in the winter, and I'll be damned if I'm not going to make Roanoke tonight. But then it got colder and colder in my car, and I'll be damned if I turn the heat on, you know. And then after it got to be 19 degrees in the car, and I'm in my sleeping bag driving, I said, well, I guess I'll turn the heat on. But I came into that plug with like 3 miles left, and the light was blinking, and it said, your power has been reduced because you are an idiot and you're almost empty. So I made some, you got to plan ahead of time when you're on long distance trips. And I find that when I stop at these fast chargers, they take an hour and a half or something like that to fill it up. And it takes me that much longer to like calculate what I'm going to do for the next leg of that journey. So yeah, but I love doing puzzles. So it's no problem to me to like be calculating all this kind of stuff. And for more locally, I drive into Asheville with my bicycle on the back. I plug in and then I ride my bike to wherever I want it to go. And usually it's a mile or something like that. It's not too far. And so that's how I get around charging while I'm doing something when there isn't necessarily a charger right where I want to go.
Heidi, you made a good point because you said you're in Marshall, which is more rural and probably doesn't have as many options close to you. Do you find that to be more challenging, or it just takes a little bit more of that puzzle solving that you mentioned?
Well, I plug in at home, and here's my level 2, which I hardly ever use. I only use it when I come home at night, I'm empty, and the next day I have to drive 200 miles, which I don't do very often. And since COVID, I haven't even driven. I haven't even done 1,000 miles. I've just been using the 110 plug, which trickle charges my batteries. And most of the use of my car is for the Wi-Fi. So, and that uses 0 miles per kilowatt. It's like a third of a kilowatt per hour or something like that. So being in Marshall, Madison County has no public chargers. And there's been some friends that have gone kayaking on the French Broad River, and I say, hey, come over to my house and you can charge while you're paddling. So, in the little internet, not the internet, but your friends and buddies can come over and charge in Madison County, but you have to go up my road, which is like 20% grade and gravel. So, it's like, there's always a payoff for one thing or another. But I normally charge publicly in Asheville. I don't, and there's nothing in Madison County.
I hope we'll change that together. So let's circle back on that because I think there's a good opportunity there.
French Broad Electric said they were going to put in some chargers in Marshall and Madison and Mars Hill, but that hasn't happened yet.
Okay. Can you imagine ever going back to a regular car? Heidi?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Because there's reasons for, having an electric car, and there's a reason for a gas car. If somebody died and I had to go to a funeral in Connecticut, I would have to rent a car because I wouldn't have time to like diddly fart around with the charging and this and that. I'd be stressed out enough. And when I have to when I'm hauling concrete from Lowe's, I'm not going to put it in that car, and then drive it up my driveway. I have a big old truck. So yes, I have gas. Like I said, I have my foot in the old world and I have my foot in the new world. And there's going to be a time where we don't have to have fossil fuels. But right now I use both, and I can't stick my nose up at one or the other. I'm making the best of both worlds.
Beth, what's the longest trip you've ever taken in one of these cars, and what was that experience like?
Probably the longest trip was in the Tesla when we drove last August, before the pandemic, August of 2019. We drove from Asheville to Minneapolis, from Minneapolis across Wisconsin up into the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, down through Michigan and Ohio, back to North Carolina. And now we were in a Tesla. One of the reasons why we bought a Tesla, we wanted a long range electric car, and Tesla was smart. Early on, they began to put in the supercharging stations all over this country. We had absolutely no trouble finding supercharging stations. We did not have to wait an hour and a half like Heidi was talking about. Probably 20, 30 minutes was the longest it took us to charge. We did not we didn't charge the battery 100%. We would charge it 80%. And so we were charging maybe every 3-4 hours, which was kind of nice on that long trip to get out and walk around. The only place on that whole long trip, and I don't know how many miles it was, but I'm sure it was at least 1,000. The only place we did not find supercharging on that trip was on the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. However, we found 2 motels where we spent 2 nights on the Upper Peninsula. We found 2 motels that had, I guess they call them Destiny. Well, I'm not sure what kind of charging you call it. It wasn't supercharging, but we were able to plug in overnight. So and they were at the motel where we were sleeping. So while we were sleeping, our car was charging. So, oh, Dave, my husband just wrote me a note. That trip was 2,900 miles. I'm not good with numbers, Heidi. That was 2,900 mile trip. We had absolutely no trouble finding charging, and it did not, because of the way that Tesla charging stations are set up, they're like every 100 miles or so on that trip. We also, the spring of 2016, we took a trip from Asheville down to Florida, which was not as many miles. That might have been 1,000 miles. Once again, had absolutely no trouble finding charging stations. The car even tells you where they are, and gosh, maybe you need to stop here and you need to charge this long. I mean, you don't even really have to think with that car. So yeah, thank you.
2,900 miles is that's a long car trip for anyone to be on. At the moment, we want to make sure we have time to get some of these audience questions in. And I have one more wrap-up question for this team after that. David, you want to help me with those?
Yes, indeed. I had a couple of questions come in via the chat, and I want to make sure that folks, please add your questions to the chat. We want to get to as many as we can, so please, do ask your questions there. There was a question that came through that said that they have a friend with a Prius hybrid who didn't know anything about the buttons. This was when you were talking about the buttons in the car. And so just wondering, what your experience has been like. Maybe I think that this person's question was around the friend having, being a little older and not necessarily as interested in all the whiz bang things. Just kind of your experience around, the driving experience itself. Turning the air conditioning on, using the cup holders, locking and unlocking the doors, the things that, are not necessarily about range and charging and some of the things that you might think about immediately, but what have been your experiences in the ownership and user experience of the car?
Well, I can speak to that. You can make it as simple or as involved, intricate as you want to. My husband has a Honda Clarity, and as soon as he got the Clarity, he spent hours in the driveway setting up everything he could. He's a tech person anyway, but he connected, I don't even know what he did. He connected his phone to the panel, and he can get, you can pretty much watch TV in there if you want to. And it's amazing what he's done. And me, I'm just, get me in the car and take me to work. That's it. So honestly, it's just like any other car. You're going to need to get used to the basics, where things are. But after that, it's truly as much as you want to put into it, you can, or you can just keep it simple.
Yeah, I agree with Laura. With the Chevy Spark and the Leaf, it was just a matter of, like any new car, where regardless of whether it's an EV or an ICE car, you just have to learn where things are. That just takes a little bit of time. And I'm simple too. So it's, in my GM Spark, it's just like I had a internal combustion engine GM Spark before this one, and it's really set up the same way. There was no difference. So I didn't have a learning curve with my car. The Tesla, there's been a learning curve. You're driving using a computer screen to touch. And I was very intimidated by that because I'm not a tech person. I was very intimidated by that in the very beginning. Now, and I'm not using all the bells and whistles. And my husband did the same thing, Laura. He sat in the driveway when we got the Tesla, and he has it connected to his phone. I do not have it connected to my phone. I don't need that. I just need to know how to get it in park and drive and reverse. I like the radio. I've learned how to turn the radio on. And I know where to, I know what to touch now for air conditioning and heating. It's just a matter of just getting to know your car like you have to do anyway when you're driving something you're not familiar with. So even for me now, the Tesla is not, what am I trying to say? It's not a headache. Doesn't cause me a lot of anxiety. When I step in to drive somewhere, I know what I'm doing. So thank you.
David, another one?
All right. So there was another question that came in from Joe, and he said, I've spoken to older women who are very concerned with the reliability of EVs and only seem comfortable with driving an ICE car. Do you have any advice for them on the choice of buying a new internal combustion engine or an EV?
This is Beth. I guess I would just say, in my experience, I'm not seeing any difference. The thing, I think there's been so much made of range anxiety out in the media, Uh, and frankly, I had some of that when I first started driving a car. But my experience, when we were able to do these Drive Electric Weeks in person with people, and my husband and I have been involved from the very beginning in doing these in Asheville for 7 or 8 years. And it's been really interesting to me that in the beginning, the first year we did that, people who did not drive EVs but were curious, who came to look around, were it's like it was a new, oh my goodness, what's this? This is weird. To just the last time we did this in person, last couple of years, we were able to do this in person. There was none of that. Even people who don't drive them, they're getting so accustomed to seeing them on the road that they are not unusual cars to them anymore. And I remember one elderly woman who, I think they were living up in Haywood County or something, which is a rural county. I was talking to her about how clean the car is, which I really like. I'm not getting oil spots on my garage floor or my driveway. And I look forward to the day when everybody's driving EVs and you go to the grocery store and there are no oil spots on the parking lot where you have to avoid. I was telling her, how clean it is, how I don't have to go to the gas station or the mechanic. Her eyes just got big, and it was like I saw her trot over to her husband and say, that might be okay for us, for me to have one locally. I think I've gone on a lot and I'm having a senior moment. I'm not sure I'm answering the question very well. So I'll shut up right now. Thank you.
Anyone else want to add
I would say
anything else?
try it. I say try it. You like it.
Yeah.
And go to the fair where you can get a ride in somebody else's car, and maybe they'll even let you try it. But because experiencing it really makes a difference for anything. I mean, if you don't know chocolate milk, you might never like it. But until you try it, you go, wow, I want to drink chocolate milk from now on. So maybe you're going to try an EV and go, wow, I can't go back. It's really a fun drive.
I agree. I think a lot of people just look at it as something really different, and just like anything else they don't know about, they're going to avoid it, not avoid it, but they're just going to put it off. So yeah, the more we can educate people on what it actually is and how it works and how really inexpensive it is, relatively speaking, I think that's going to go a long way to getting more people comfortable with the idea of driving one.
Thank you. And we're going to start this wrap up. If you had questions that didn't get answered, I'm sure Plug in America, you can funnel that through there and they'll get that answered for you down the road, or these ladies might be able to let you reach out to them directly if you want to have that conversation. In this, Beth, what's one thing you would like to tell someone thinking about buying an electric car?
I think I would just say they really are cars. You're going to not find it a whole lot different than driving an ICE car. Your mindset will change a little bit about where you're getting your energy from. You'll plug it in your wall instead of going to the going to the gas station. But they're cars, and you can use them just like you use an ICE car. There's no difference. Thank you.
Jackie?
I'd say, yeah, do it.
Laura, what's one thing you'd like to tell someone thinking about making the switch?
I think if they're actually thinking about it, then they're interested. So if you can move them more in the direction of actually buying one. My supervisor at work is a good example, because he said his wife he and his wife drive 10 minutes max to their respective workplaces. And I actually drove him once to a conference we were going to. And so he got to experience it. And he said, yeah, we're thinking about getting one. And I said, well, you really should. And so I would say just go ahead and do it. Try it first, like other people have mentioned, and talk to people about it. But the more information you get, I really think most people are who are interested to begin with, are going to find that they should make that step and do it.
Make that step and do it. I think that's a good parting word. Thank you all for your time today. This has been enlightening for me. I hope it has for you guys as well. David put website blueridgeevclub.com if you want to stay involved and ask more questions. I look forward. I hope you enjoy the rest of Drive Electric virtual day, week, whatever that means for us. I hope we do it in person again together in the future. Until then, stay safe, stay well, and keep driving electric.
Thank you.
Thank you.